Turning to a major development in the ongoing Epstein scandal, NPR reporting that DOJ, quote, withheld and removed some Epstein files related to Trump, allegedly hiding those docs, which, depending on the details we get, could be against the law. MS Now reporting the files involve an Epstein accuser who alleged Trump sexually assaulted her, and that the missing files include over 50 pages of FBI interviews, notes from conversations. MS Now reporting that basically you have at least 4 interviews the FBI conducted with the woman, a memo, no handwritten notes, reflecting that such an interview is included on the DOJ site. Now, the first legal question is whether the Trump DOJ is breaking the law hiding these files. The second would be whether this material is credible. It is hard, if not impossible, to assess that in any way without access to it. Now, there is no governmental finding of wrongdoing here, let alone a past charge or indictment.
Hey, and welcome guys, Adam is here. So let's get started. Something absolutely catastrophic just happened in federal court that proves Donald Trump is walking straight into a legal trap he cannot escape. A federal judge just threatened to hold the entire Trump administration in contempt of court for deliberately covering up evidence. And this isn't some minor procedural ruling.
Our breaking news just coming in to CNN right now. A federal judge in New York has just granted the U.S. Justice Department's request to unseal records from the investigation and criminal prosecution of Ghislaine Maxwell. Maxwell, of course, was an associate of Jeffrey Epstein. The ruling opens the door for the department to publicly release evidence it had gathered against Maxwell. The trove of documents includes grand jury transcripts, financial records, travel documents, and notes from victim interviews obtained during the investigations. We're just getting Ellie Honig in to give us some legal analysis right now on this Justice Department decision to release a whole bunch of documents involving Ghislaine Maxwell, the woman who was involved with Epstein, as all of us know. What's your sense? When are these documents going to be released, and how significant are they?
This could result in jail time for Trump's attorney general. This could result in criminal charges. This could literally bring down Trump's presidency. Let me walk you through what just happened because it's devastating. On February 24, 2026, Judge Paul Engelmayer issued an order that is absolutely crushing for Trump.
Well, so these are the grand jury materials that relate to the Justice Department through the Southern District of New York's prosecution of Ghislaine Maxwell, which happened primarily in 2020. Now, DOJ had gone to this judge, Judge Paul Engelmayer, before a few months ago and asked for permission to unseal the grand jury materials. At that time, the judge denied the request because grand jury materials are ordinarily supposed to be confidential, and the judge said, I don't see any compelling reason why we need to change that. Now, what has changed, however, is that Congress has passed and the president has signed this Epstein Files Transparency Act, which essentially overrides the normal concerns about grand jury confidentiality. So the judge today has said, well, in light of this law that's been passed, I now order that the grand jury materials should be released. Now,
the judge discovered that the DOJ deliberately removed Epstein documents from the public database. They didn't just slow walk the release. They actually went back and deleted things that had already been made public. They made evidence disappear. And Judge Engelmayer had a simple message. Either you appoint an independent monitor by February 27th and release all documents unredacted, or I'm holding you in contempt of court. Contempt of court is not a joke. Contempt can result in jail time. Contempt can result in massive fines. Contempt can result in removal from office. When a federal judge threatens contempt charges, that's a serious legal threat with real consequences. The judge used language that should terrify every single person in the Trump administration. He talked about revenge-style accountability. He basically said that Trump's obstruction of justice warrants consequences. He made it clear that this is a serious matter that cannot be ignored. When a federal judge uses language like that, it means they are absolutely done playing games. It means they are prepared to use the full power of the court to enforce their orders. It means people could go to jail. Let's talk about what the judge's order actually requires. He ordered that an independent monitor be appointed by February 27th. An independent monitor is a court-appointed official who oversees the release of the Epstein files. Their job is to make sure the DOJ is actually releasing documents and not deleting them. Their job is to make sure the DOJ is complying with the judge's order, and the judge made it crystal clear. If the DOJ doesn't appoint a monitor by the 27th, they are in contempt. Here's what makes this deadline absolutely wild. February 27th is just 3 days after Trump's State of the Union address on February 24th. 3 days. That's basically impossible. That's a guarantee that the DOJ will miss the deadline. That's a guarantee that Pam Bondi will be held in contempt. And if Bondi is held in contempt, she could face jail time, she could face fines, she could potentially be removed from office. All because she allegedly directed the DOJ to delete Epstein documents. All because Trump's administration allegedly covered up evidence. All because Trump allegedly tried to suppress documents that implicate him personally. The numbers here are staggering. Out of 5 million Epstein documents, the DOJ has released less than 1%. Less than 1%. That's about 12,000 pages out of 5 million. That's a 99% withholding rate. That's not a processing delay. That's a complete and total cover-up. The deadline for release was December 19, 2025. We're now in late February 2026. That's over 2 months past the deadline. And the DOJ is still claiming it needs more time for redactions. It's an excuse. It's a lie. It's obstruction. Representatives Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie from opposite parties wrote a letter to Judge Engelmayer saying exactly this. They said the DOJ violated the Epstein Files Transparency Act. They said the DOJ failed to comply with the deadline. They said survivors of Epstein's crimes report that the DOJ is giving them lip service, not genuine cooperation. They asked the judge to appoint a monitor, and the judge agreed with them completely. He basically said, "You're right. The DOJ is not complying. I'm appointing a monitor." Pam Bondi opposed this. She literally fought against the monitor appointment. She said it wasn't necessary. She said the DOJ could handle the release on its own. But the judge basically said, "No, I don't trust you. You've shown you can't be trusted. You've deliberately deleted documents. You've deliberately withheld documents. You've lied to me about what you're doing. I'm appointing a monitor anyway." That rejection is devastating. It shows the judge has completely lost confidence in Bondi. He's basically saying she's a liar who can't be trusted to follow the law. When a federal judge loses confidence in a cabinet secretary like that, contempt charges are almost certainly coming. Now let's talk about the timing, because it couldn't be worse for Trump. Just hours before the judge issued this contempt threat, Trump gave his State of the Union address. It was a disaster. He got booed. He got heckled. His own party members walked out. It was chaotic and humiliating. And then, just hours later, this contempt threat lands. Trump is supposed to be recovering from the State of the Union disaster. He's supposed to be trying to salvage his presidency. Instead, he's dealing with the very real possibility that his attorney general could go to jail. This is absolutely crushing for Trump psychologically and politically. Remember what Trump said back in January. He warned that if Republicans lose the midterms, he'll get impeached. He understands the stakes. He understands that legal jeopardy is real. And yet he's walking straight into it anyway. He's defying the judge's orders. His DOJ is continuing to withhold documents. He's betting he can avoid contempt charges. That bet is probably not going to pay off. Let's break down what contempt of court actually means and why it's so serious. Contempt is when someone deliberately violates a judge's order. The consequences can include jail time, fines, and removal from office. It's not some abstract legal concept. It's real punishment for real misconduct. Judge Engelmayer found that the DOJ's deletion of documents was willful. That word is crucial. Willful means intentional. Willful means deliberate. Willful means they knew what they were doing was wrong and did it anyway. This wasn't an innocent mistake. This wasn't bureaucratic error. This was deliberate obstruction of justice. This was the Trump administration using government power to suppress evidence. The judge also found that the deleted documents specifically mentioned Trump. They contained allegations against him. They had information that could be embarrassing or damaging, and the Trump DOJ deleted them. They made them disappear. That's the definition of a cover-up. That's Trump using government power to hide evidence about himself. That's exactly what the framers of the Constitution were worried about when they created the impeachment power. Now let's talk about what the independent monitor would mean. Once a monitor is appointed, Trump loses control over document release. The monitor becomes the gatekeeper. The monitor decides what gets released and when. The monitor makes sure everything comes out. Trump cannot suppress documents anymore. He cannot hide embarrassing information anymore. He's basically defenseless against the truth coming out. And that's the worst possible outcome for him because his whole strategy has been to hide the Epstein files. Bondi opposed the monitor because she knows what a monitor would find. A monitor would expose the cover-up. A monitor would reveal that the DOJ deliberately withheld documents. A monitor would prove that Trump's administration was obstructing justice. That's why she fought it. That's why she's desperate to keep control. But the judge saw through it. He appointed a monitor anyway. And now the truth is coming. The February 27th deadline is basically impossible to meet. The DOJ cannot possibly appoint a monitor and release millions of documents unredacted in 3 days. That's by design. The judge set an impossible deadline to guarantee that contempt charges would be necessary. He wanted to make sure the DOJ couldn't escape accountability, so contempt is basically inevitable. And once contempt is found, Bondi could face jail time. She could be removed from office. She could be fined. And all of that becomes international news. All of that becomes the ultimate proof of Trump's cover-up. This contempt finding will be cited repeatedly in impeachment proceedings. House members will point to Judge Engelmayer's order and say, "See, Trump's administration is obstructing justice. See, a federal judge agrees with us. See, Trump should be impeached." Those judicial findings carry enormous weight. They validate Congress's decision to impeach. They show this isn't partisan politics. This is a serious constitutional matter. The bipartisan support for the judge's order makes it even more powerful. Khanna and Massey from opposite parties both said the DOJ is not complying. Both said a monitor is needed. Both said the DOJ needs to be held accountable. That bipartisan pressure makes it harder for other Republicans to defend Trump. It fractures Republican unity. It pushes more Republicans toward impeachment. The less than 1% release rate shows systemic obstruction, not bureaucratic delay. This isn't a paperwork problem. This is a deliberate cover-up. The DOJ is intentionally withholding documents. They're intentionally deleting documents. They're engaged in a conspiracy to hide the truth. And the judge sees it. The judge understands it. And the judge is acting accordingly. Now let's talk about what this means for Trump's legal position. He appointed Bondi. He's responsible for the DOJ. If the DOJ is obstructing justice, Trump is responsible for that obstruction. He could potentially be charged with obstruction of justice himself. His legal jeopardy is very real. And this contempt threat happens right before the midterms, maximizing political damage. Every Democratic campaign ad will feature Judge Engelmayer's contempt order. Every ad will highlight Trump's obstruction. Every ad will point to the deleted documents. And that's going to drive voters away from Republicans. Senate Republicans who are already wavering on conviction will see this contempt finding as more evidence. When they see a federal judge ruling that Trump's administration obstructed justice, that pushes them toward conviction. That makes it easier for them to vote to remove him. Trump is walking into a legal trap he cannot escape. Either he loses control to a monitor, or he's held in contempt. Either way, he loses. Either way, his legal position deteriorates. Either way, impeachment becomes more likely. There's no way out. Trump is trapped. And that's exactly what Judge Engelmayer intended. What happens next? The DOJ will miss the February 27th deadline because it's impossible to meet. Bondi will be held in contempt. The contempt finding will be cited in impeachment proceedings. The House will impeach Trump based in part on this finding. The Senate will hold a trial where this contempt finding is presented as evidence. The outcome is uncertain, but Trump's legal position is extremely precarious. He's facing serious legal jeopardy. He's facing the real possibility of removal from office. He's facing potential criminal charges for obstruction of justice. All because he tried to cover up the Epstein documents. All because he tried to use government power to suppress evidence about himself. all because he put himself above the law. And now the courts are making sure that doesn't happen. Now the courts are enforcing the rule of law. Now the courts are holding Trump accountable. Judge Engelmayer's contempt order will be one of the most important legal documents in Trump's presidency. It will be cited for years. It will define Trump's legacy. It proves that Trump's administration engaged in deliberate obstruction of justice. It proves that Trump tried to hide the truth. It proves that the system can still hold powerful people accountable. The deadline is coming. The contempt finding is coming. The impeachment is coming. And Trump is terrified because he knows exactly what's about to happen. He walked into a legal trap, and now the door is closing behind him.